The air on Council Station Theta 9 was wrong. Too thin. Too processed. Every breath tasted of sterilized metal and recycled condensation. The atmosphere carried no pheromones worth tracking, no organic complexity, no living edge. It was air designed for comfort. For prey. Ambassador Caliph stood on the upper observation balcony overlooking the central diplomatic chamber. The gravity here was set to 0.6 standard, barely enough to anchor her weight. She compensated instinctively, muscles adjusting to prevent overextension. If she moved as she would on her homeworld, she would shatter the polished composite flooring. Below her, delegates clustered in cautious spirals of color and bioluminescence. They pretended not to look up. They always looked up. Calitha's silver irises narrowed slightly as her nictitating membrane flicked once across her vision, enhancing contrast. She tracked micro-movements automatically, the dilation of compound eyes, the subtle tightening of neck frills, the nearly imperceptible step backward when she descended into a room. The universal language of prey recognizing predator. She did not need scent to confirm it. Her presence distorted the chamber's rhythm. The architecture reinforced it. Wide hallways with curved walls. Soft lighting. Rounded corners. No sharp edges. No enclosed choke points. A structure built to prevent confrontation. Built to prevent someone like her from using it. Her reflection shimmered faintly in the transparent alloy barrier before her, tall, angular, muscle density obvious even through formal diplomatic attire. Her kind had evolved under crushing gravity and hostile megafauna. Bone plating beneath skin. Reflexes honed for lethal efficiency. The only Death World species in active council representation. Officially classified as stabilized predatory. Unofficially, dangerous. She turned slightly as a pair of aquatic delegates passed beneath her balcony. Their gill slits fluttered when her shadow crossed them. One adjusted its hydration collar unnecessarily. Distance. Always distance. Calitha's claws remained retracted, but she felt the subtle tension in her forearms. A lifetime of restrained instinct. On her world, strength was clarity. Hierarchy earned through combat trials. Territory defended openly. Threats resolved decisively. Here, power wore silk and smiled. Ambassador Caliph. She did not startle. The voice had approached carefully, footsteps slowed intentionally before entering her peripheral range. A Valorian administrator stood several meters back, farther than protocol required. Council vote begins in 1 hour, the administrator said, regarding mineral extraction rights in the Paraxis Belt. Caliph inclined her head slightly. The Paraxis Belt was uninhabited rock. Yet the Council feared precedent. Feared that granting a Death World species expanded resource control would shift economic leverage. They believe we will militarize the sector, the administrator added cautiously. Of course they did. Calitha's gaze drifted back over the chamber. The Council called her species aggressive. Destabilizing. A necessary inclusion for diversity optics, but never fully trusted. She was invited to speak. Never invited to belong. On her homeworld, predators did not apologize for existing. Here, she modulated tone, softened posture, reduced eye contact duration to avoid triggering prey responses. An apex forced to dull its edges. Isolation was not exile. It was proximity without connection. Below, a cluster of herbivorous delegates adjusted their formation as she began descending the staircase. The space around her opened subtly. No one touched her. No one brushed shoulders accidentally. No one stood within striking distance unless required. She moved through them like a blade through mist. Respected. Feared. Alone. Caliph reached the chamber floor just as a holoscreen flared to life with updated vote tallies. Opposition numbers rising. Political tension tightened the air. They would deny her petition. Again. Not because it was dangerous, but because she was. Her ears angled slightly backward, an instinctive gesture she suppressed immediately. Predators did not show frustration. They adapted. She exhaled slowly, the recycled air offering nothing back. She had thought herself apex. But apex, she was beginning to understand, meant nothing in a galaxy ruled by fear of what you are. The chamber doors parted with a soft hydraulic sigh. No announcement. No ceremonial escort. Just a late arrival stepping through polished alloy thresholds as if he had taken a wrong turn. Caliph noticed him immediately. Not because he was impressive. Because he wasn't. He was smaller than most delegates present. No visible armor. No natural plating. No bioluminescent threat display. His attire was dark, practical, council-standard civilian cut, tailored but unadorned. Soft skin. No claws. Round pupils. Human. The council had admitted Earth 2 cycles ago under provisional cooperative status. Limited influence. Minimal voting weight. Politically cautious. Prey-tier classification. He paused just inside the chamber, adjusting his sleeve with absent precision. His eyes moved once around the room, not darting, not wide. Just measuring. Then he began walking. No one cleared a path for him. No one reacted. Why would they? He approached the outer diplomatic ring and stopped at an empty console adjacent to Calitha's position. Too close. Delegates normally kept a measured distance from her perimeter. He did not. Not challengingly. Simply unaware. Calith turned her head slowly, allowing her shadow to fall across him. Most species reacted immediately to that. Subtle recoil. Increased respiration. Peripheral tension. The human did not. He finished entering a code into his console, posture relaxed. His breathing was slow. Even. Approximately 8 cycles per minute. Controlled. Interesting. She let a sliver of her inner eyelid slide across her eye, a subtle predatory cue on her world. Among most council species, the motion triggered unconscious threat responses. Nothing. He glanced at her briefly. "Ambassador," he said. Voice level. No tremor. Then he returned to the screen. No prolonged eye contact. No deference posture. No attempt to placate. Not bold. Just neutral. Calith shifted one step closer. Within striking distance now. Her presence radiated heat compared to the station's cool environmental balance. She angled her shoulders slightly, exposing the faint ridge lines beneath her skin, a display that had ended more than one diplomatic dispute without words. He adjusted his stance subtly. Not retreating. Not squaring up. Just redistributing weight to maintain balance in low gravity. He did not even seem aware he was being assessed. "What is your delegation's position on the Paraxis vote?" she asked. He glanced sideways again. "Undecided." "Undecided," she repeated softly, letting a low subharmonic edge enter her voice. A pressure test. Several nearby delegates shifted uncomfortably. The human blinked once. Yes. No elaboration. No attempt to appease. She let silence stretch. Predators understood silence as dominance. Prey filled it nervously. He did neither. He simply waited. Heart rate steady. No adrenaline spike detectable. No pheromone shift. He was either exceptionally disciplined or oblivious. Calith leaned slightly closer, lowering her voice further. "Most species find my proximity uncomfortable." A direct warning. He considered that for a moment. "I assumed you were comfortable with it," he said. It wasn't defiance. It wasn't sarcasm. It was literal. She studied him fully now. His muscles were compact beneath fabric. Not large, but dense. Subtle forearm tension suggested conditioned strength. Microscars traced across his knuckles, old impact injuries. His eyes returned to his display. Breathing unchanged. He was not suppressing fear. There was no fear. That was wrong. Humans were cooperative omnivores from a near-standard gravity world. Moderate climate. Predictable ecosystems. They were not apex. She extended one claw slightly, just enough to catch the chamber lighting. A reflexive test. He looked at it with clinical curiosity. "Does that retract fully?" he asked quietly. Calith blinked. "Yes." "That's efficient." He nodded once, as if cataloging a detail. Then returned to his console. No challenge. No submission. Just observation. Calith felt something unfamiliar stir beneath her controlled exterior. Not threat. Not dominance. Something misaligned. He did not respond like prey. He did not posture like predator. He simply existed, unmoved, unimpressed, unbothered. And for the first time since arriving at Council Station Theta 9, Caliph sensed something was off. The vote failed by 4 margins. Not a landslide. Not humiliation. Just enough. Caliph did not react outwardly. She inclined her head once as the results populated across the chamber's central display. Delegates shifted with visible relief. Tension diffused in subtle pheromone releases she could almost taste in the recycled air. Predictable. She turned to leave. 3 of those 4 were influenced in the last 6 minutes, the human said calmly beside her. She paused. His eyes remained on the results feed. Explain. He tapped 2 sections of the holographic interface. The Valorian block was stable until Councillor Irix stepped out of formation at 1422. When he returned, the Heskin delegation adjusted posture. See the shoulder angle shift. That's a deference cue. They don't move unless someone senior signals first. Caliph replayed the feed in peripheral vision. He was correct. Subtle. Nearly invisible. You tracked that in real time? She asked. Yes. No pride. Just confirmation. The Heskin rely on Valorian trade routes. The Valorians rely on the Terethi Banking Guild. The Terethi abstained publicly but signaled through silence. That cascade shifted the last 4 votes. He folded his hands loosely behind his back. Economic pressure. Not fear of your species. She studied him carefully now. You are certain? Yes. How? He glanced at her. Your presence causes physical discomfort. Not economic caution. Try. Clinical. Not insulting. Merely differentiated. Calitha's gaze sharpened slightly. And what causes economic caution? Uncertainty. He stepped away from the console, moving with efficient balance in low gravity. The Council fears you because you're strong. They resist you because they can't predict you. She considered that. Predators are predictable, she said. We pursue. We dominate. We secure territory. He tilted his head slightly. Exactly. A pause. Humans are also predictable, he added. She raised a brow ridge. You are. Yes. We pursue leverage. He walked a slow semicircle around the chamber floor, eyes scanning not faces, but structural nodes, ceiling emitters, environmental vents. What are you looking at? She asked. Airflow distribution. She followed his line of sight. Why? The temperature gradient shifts 3 degrees near the Terethi delegation cluster. They prefer warmer air. Station control adjusted it mid-session. So someone anticipated their discomfort and compensated. He stopped. That suggests pre-negotiation confidence. Caliph replayed the chamber's thermal overlay in memory. The shift had been minor. She had dismissed it. You observe environmental politics, she said. Yes. And you concluded that the vote was decided before it began. His tone did not change. We just witnessed performance. Her eyes narrowed. You sound certain for a provisional species. We read patterns, he replied simply. Predators read prey. Humans read systems. A subtle beat passed between them. She watched his breathing again. Still steady. Still controlled. No cortisol spike. No submissive pheromone trace. You do not fear me, she said quietly. He considered that. I respect you. That is not the same. No. Silence stretched. Then he added, almost as an afterthought. We're cooperative. A brief pause. We just cooperate differently. Caliph felt the faintest shift inside her chest. Not threat. Not dominance. Recognition. She had entered this chamber assuming the human was irrelevant. Now she was analyzing him the way she would analyze an unknown predator in foreign terrain. Cataloging movement efficiency. Information processing speed. Situational awareness. He had not raised his voice. He had not displayed strength. He had not challenged her authority. And yet, He had dissected the council in under 10 minutes. Quietly. Precisely. Without needing anyone to clear a path. For the first time since his arrival, Caliph did not see prey. She saw competence. The lights died mid-sentence. Not dimmed. Cut. Council Station Theta 9 dropped into absolute darkness. A fraction of a second later, gravity failed. Delegates lifted from the chamber floor in a slow, disoriented drift. Loose datapads spiraled upward. A chorus of startled vocalizations filled the air as prey species instinctively reached for ground that no longer existed. Caliph did not panic. She rotated mid-air, body adjusting instinctively for zero gravity. Then the outer hull ruptured. The sound was wrong. Less explosion, more violent decompression. Transparent alloy panels spiderwebbed and burst outward. Atmosphere howled into vacuum. Emergency bulkheads failed to deploy. Figures in armored exosuits maglocked through the breach. Mercenaries. 12. Weapons already hot. This was not assassination. It was capture. Caliph launched herself toward the nearest intruder, claws extending fully. In full gravity, she would have reached lethal velocity instantly. In 0G, momentum betrayed her. She struck one mercenary, talons finding seam gaps in armor. Blood erupted in floating globules, dark spheres drifting between bodies. But she had no anchor. No leverage. A second mercenary fired a restraint coil. Electromagnetic arcs snapped around her torso. Her nervous system spasmed. She roared, muscles fighting paralysis, but resistance was not immunity. Another mercenary stabilized against the chamber wall using mag boots, pivoting effortlessly while she struggled to generate force. Predator without ground. Teeth without purchase. She twisted violently, tearing through a visor, but her movements were slowing. Then something moved differently. Not drifting. Not tumbling. Walking. Caliph's vision tracked him automatically. The human. His boots were maglocked to the chamber floor. He had anchored himself during the first gravity fluctuation. One hand gripped a structural support beam. The other caught a descending rifle mid-swing. He did not shout. Did not posture. He simply redirected force. The mercenary pulling the rifle backward overextended. The human stepped forward, using the attacker's own momentum. A short elbow strike, precise, into the neck seam beneath the helmet. Armor cracked. Body went limp. He did not look at it again. Another mercenary fired point-blank. The human rotated, one boot unlocking, relocking to adjust angle. The shot grazed his side. He did not react beyond micro-adjustment. He closed distance before the weapon recharged. Grabbed the barrel. Twisted. Metal warped under torque. The mercenary attempted to disengage. The human drove his forehead into the helmet faceplate. Once. Twice. On the third impact, the visor shattered inward. No flourish. No roar. Just mechanical destruction. Caliph tore free of the weakening restraint coil and caught a floating mercenary by the throat, crushing windpipe between clawed fingers. But her eyes kept returning to the human. He moved through 0G like he had trained for it. Lock. Unlock. Pivot. Strike. Every motion minimized. Every target neutralized. No wasted energy. One mercenary swung a plasma blade toward him. The blade cut across his forearm. Skin opened. Blood drifted. He did not withdraw. He caught the attacker's wrist. Applied rotational force at the elbow joint. There was a clean snapping sound. Then he drove the broken limb backward into the mercenary's own chest cavity. Silence followed in fragments. Bodies floated. Weapons drifted. The breach alarm howled as emergency shutters finally sealed. Gravity flickered, unstable but returning. Caliph landed hard on the chamber floor. Breathing heavy. Heart elevated. She scanned the room. All 12 mercenaries were down. The human stood upright, mag boots disengaging as gravity normalized. Blood ran down his arm. He flexed his fingers once. Functional. He looked at her. Are you injured? No pride. No adrenaline spike. No dominance display. Just assessment. Caliph stared at him. This was not prey behavior. Prey froze. Prey fled. Prey survived by avoidance. He had anchored, adapted, closed distance, ended threats, efficiently, without spectacle, without hesitation. She had thought herself apex in this chamber. But when the environment shifted, he had adapted faster. And predators that adapt faster are not prey. They are something else entirely. Emergency lights bathed the chamber in low amber. Bodies were being removed. Atmosphere stabilizing. Council security finally arriving, too late to matter. Caliph stood several paces from the human. He was leaning against a structural column, calmly wrapping a compression bandage around his forearm. Blood still seeped through. "You were cut to the muscle," she observed. "Yes." His breathing remained steady. Pain markers should have been obvious: pupil dilation, cortisol scent, tremor in extremities. There were none. "You continue functioning," she said. "Yes." She stepped closer. Close enough to smell the iron in his blood. Close enough to hear his heartbeat. Slow. Measured. Lower than most prey species even at rest. "That wound would incapacitate the majority of council delegates," she said quietly. He nodded once. "Probably. Yet you did not hesitate." "No." She crouched slightly, examining the laceration with clinical focus. The bleeding had already slowed dramatically. Clotting response was rapid. Muscle fibers beneath the cut were dense, compact. "You were shot as well," she said, noticing a darkened tear in his side where plasma had grazed him. "Superficial. It should not be." He met her eyes then. There was no arrogance in his expression. Only clarity. "Earth isn't a gentle world," he said. Her ears angled forward slightly. "Elaborate." He finished securing the bandage and straightened. "High gravity. Predators. Disease density. Environmental volatility. Humans evolved under sustained stress." He spoke as if reciting climate data. "We heal fast. We endure pain. We conserve energy until it matters." Caliph studied him. Council records list humans as cooperative omnivores. "We are." A brief pause. "We just cooperate differently." Her gaze narrowed slightly. "You downplay your capabilities." "Yes." "Why?" "Because the galaxy categorizes threats before it understands them." His voice lowered. "Being underestimated is strategic." Caliph felt something shift inside her. Recognition. "You let them believe you are prey. We let them believe we are manageable." The chamber lights hummed softly around them. Security personnel kept distance, instinctively avoiding proximity to both of them now. "You anchored yourself first," she said. "Yes." "You adapted faster." "I train in variable gravity." "For diplomacy. For survival." Their voices had dropped to near subsonic levels, private, instinctive. Caliph held his gaze longer this time. "You are not prey," she said quietly. "No." "You are not dominant either." "No." A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched his expression. "We persist." Her claws retracted slowly. Not in submission. In acknowledgement. "You smell like iron," she murmured. He glanced at his bandaged arm. "Blood." "No," she corrected softly. "Stone." A moment passed. Two apex minds recalibrating. Two predators recognizing each other not through challenge, but through adaptation. For the first time since arriving on Council Station Theta 9, Caliph did not feel alone in the chamber. Security reports confirmed it within minutes. The mercenaries had not acted alone. Secondary breach signatures were moving through the station's maintenance corridors, coordinated, disciplined. Another wave. Caliph flexed her claws once. "Council security will be ineffective," she said flatly. "Yes," the human replied. He was already moving toward a wall panel near the chamber's environmental controls. "What are you doing?" "Improvising." He tore open the access casing with a borrowed tool from a fallen mercenary's kit. Wiring bundles spilled outward in controlled tangles. "These corridors run coolant lines and plasma conduits," he said. "Pressure variance equals force. Caliph watched his hands move. Precise. Efficient. He removed a cylindrical regulator from its housing. That is a thermal stabilizer, she noted. It's about to be a directional explosive. He bridged 2 connectors, bypassed a safety lock, then sealed the casing with a fragment of composite plating. Caliph crouched beside him. Explain the mechanism. Contained coolant flash boils if pressure spikes beyond tolerance. In a sealed housing that creates a concussive blast. She considered it. Physics. Yes. My species hunts with claws, she said quietly. Humans hunt with leverage. He handed her a compacted length of conduit. Crimp this here. Her claws proved more precise than his fingers for the narrow adjustment. The metal snapped cleanly under her grip. Footsteps echoed down the corridor. Multiple. Disciplined spacing. The human positioned the improvised device near a choke point, angling it behind a structural pillar. Caliph moved to the opposite wall, flattening herself into shadow. When they enter, he said calmly, I detonate. You strike the disoriented. She nodded once. Predator logic. Different tools. Same outcome. The first mercenary rounded the corner, weapon raised. The human triggered the overload. The stabilizer detonated in a tight, focused blast. Armor plating dented inward. 2 mercenaries staggered. Caliph moved. No roar. No display. Just speed. Her claws found exposed joints with surgical precision, throat seam, underarm gap, knee actuator. The human stepped through the smoke. A short metal pipe, once part of the environmental grid, became a baton in his hands. He struck at helmet edges, wrist joints, elbow pivots. He did not aim for spectacle. He aimed for function. 1 mercenary fell. Then another. The corridor fell silent. Caliph exhaled slowly. We use claws, she said. He adjusted his grip on the pipe. We use physics. A faint pause. Together, he added. She studied him briefly. Instinct plus calculation. Speed plus leverage. Predator plus persistence. In the narrow corridor of a space station designed for prey. They defended like something the Council had never categorized. Not chaos. Not dominance. Just cooperative predation. The auxiliary chamber was immaculate. Repaired lighting. Polished flooring. Formal seating tiers filled with delegates who now watched Caliph and the human with something sharper than fear. Suspicion. At the center platform stood Councillor Virex of the Terethi bloc. Architect of the failed Paraxis vote. Political predator. Ambassador Caliph, Virex began smoothly, it is unfortunate that violent events followed immediately after your proposal was denied. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. You imply causation, Caliph said coldly. I imply opportunity, Virex replied. A staged attack. A demonstration of strength. Sympathy leverage. Several delegates shifted uneasily. The human stood beside her, not behind. Not deferential. Just present. Virex's eyes flicked toward him dismissively. And the human. Newly admitted. Conveniently capable. A holographic display activated above the chamber floor. Financial records, encrypted transfers. Fabricated. Elegant. Dangerous. Your evidence. Caliph demanded. Circumstantial, Virex admitted lightly. But persuasive. The Council must consider all variables. The chamber's air pressure shifted subtly. Caliph's ears twitched. Too high frequency. She stiffened. Pain lanced through her skull. A sonic modulation, precisely tuned to car auditory sensitivity. Illegal under Council weapons accords. Her knees threatened to buckle. The human did not fall. His jaw tightened. A thin line of blood slipped from one nostril, but he remained upright. He stepped forward. Activate it fully, he said calmly. Virex froze. Excuse me. The subharmonic emitter in your architectural lattice, the human continued evenly. You calibrated it for car auditory overload. Gasps scattered across the chamber. Virex's crest feathers tightened involuntarily. Caliph fought through the sonic pressure, vision blurring. You cannot prove. I don't need to, the human interrupted. He reached into the control panel at the platform's base and rerouted the emitter's output to the public acoustic grid. The chamber filled with the weapon's signature waveform displayed visually. Delegates recoiled. Proof. Virex panicked. He triggered full activation. The sound intensified. Caliph collapsed to one knee, claws digging into polished floor. The human did not retreat. He walked forward. Slow. Deliberate. Blood now running freely from his nose. Humans lacked the hypersensitive auditory range of car physiology. The weapon hurt him, but it did not incapacitate him. He reached Virex's platform, gripped the control console. "Deactivate," he said quietly. Virex's hand trembled. Security forces surged inward as the council erupted in outrage. The sonic assault cut abruptly. Caliph inhaled sharply, pain receding in waves. She looked up. The human stood over Virex, unarmed, unshaken. "You attempted to murder a council ambassador," he said flatly. "On record." Silence fell. Delegates who had viewed Caliph as destabilizing now looked at her, and at him, with something different. Not suspicion. Not dismissal. Respect edged with caution. Virex was taken into custody. The chamber remained quiet long after. Caliph rose slowly. "You endured what I could not," she said softly. He wiped the blood from his face. "We endure differently." Across the chamber, the council recalibrated. Not because of violence, but because they had witnessed something more dangerous. An apex predator, outmaneuvered intellectually, and the human who stood when she could not. 6 cycles later, the council reconvened. The chamber was full. Not because of routine governance, because perception had shifted. Councillor Virex's seat remained empty, his block fractured, his assets frozen pending investigation. The sonic weapon scandal had rippled outward through political channels with quiet devastation. The Paraxis Belt vote was reopened. This time it passed. Unanimously. Not out of generosity. Out of recalculation. Caliph stood at the center platform once more. Formal attire precise. Silver hair bound tightly along cranial ridges in traditional clan pattern. And beside her, not behind, beside, the human. No insignia of rank beyond council identification. No ceremonial guard stance. Hands loosely clasped at his back. Present. Visible. The chamber felt different now. Delegates still kept distance. But it was measured space. Respectful space. Not avoidance. The council head inclined forward slightly. "The Car Imperium's resource petition is approved. Additionally, Earth's provisional classification is under review." Carefully worded. Human capabilities were being reassessed. Not publicly announced as dangerous. Simply reevaluated. Caliph nodded once. "We appreciate the council's reconsideration." No triumph. No threat. The session adjourned without incident. As they exited into the corridor overlooking the station's central core, Caliph slowed her pace. Stars wheeled beyond transparent alloy panels. Silence stretched comfortably between them. "You altered the council without firing a shot," she said. "You would have," he replied. "Yes." A faint pause. "I prefer structural change." She studied him sidelong. "You endured pain designed to incapacitate me. You would have done the same." "Yes." They stopped at the observation deck. Below, thousands of species moved through diplomatic routines. Above, infinite systems waited. "I believed myself apex," Caliph said quietly. "You are." She glanced at him. "And you?" He considered. "We're persistent." A small, almost imperceptible smile touched her expression. "On my world, bonded pairs undertake a hunt before formal recognition." He tilted his head slightly. "A test." "Yes." "Endurance. Coordination. Trust." He looked back toward the stars. "Sounds efficient." "It is." Silence again. But not isolation. "I was alone here," she admitted softly. "Not anymore," he replied. Below them, council delegates continued their cautious orbit. Behind them, political balances recalibrated in real time. Ahead of them, resource sectors, border disputes, and emerging threats waited patiently. Kalith turned toward him fully. "The galaxy will adapt," she said. "It always does," he answered. She extended her hand. He took it without hesitation. Two predators. Different methods. Shared ground. And somewhere beyond council space, the universe would learn that apex did not mean solitary. It meant choosing the right partner and moving forward together.